Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Mac and Jack Sports Show, our Thursday edition, streaming live on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch on Mac Sports and the Northeast Streaming Sports Facebook pages. Please like, follow, and share our Facebook pages. Subscribe to the Northeast Streaming Sports YouTube channel for all the great Northeast Streaming Sports shows. We're also on Instagram and Twitter. Our website is nessp.info for all the information on all our shows, the guests, bios, baseball and football information, stores, links to those stores. I'm Mac with your co-host, Jack Hirsch, legendary boxing writer and former president of the Boxing Writers Association of America, together bringing you national sports with special focus on Northeast professional sports from New York, Boston, and Philly. Good morning, Jack, and we got a new change to our format today.
Well, go ahead. Tell us about it, Mac.
Well, I figured I'd get the good morning out of the way first. But, folks, every Thursday from now on, since hockey has left us for the most part, I mean, the schedule is done. The Stanley Cup is over. Every Thursday, we're going to be doing a boxing show. And I thought, what better to do during the week than have a boxing show with one of the greatest sports writers in the last 40 years maybe, and all the guests that we could get through connections and through the people we know already. What better to have a boxing show on that we can expand and fill in a lot of information, entertainment, and boxing, Jack?
Hey, I mean, we're going to have on so many good guests, but what we're going to have on a lot of the young boxers, a lot of the young fighters on the way up, as well as the established world champions, boxing personalities. We're going to have on media, promoters, matchmakers. I mean, we're going to have it all. We'll have timekeepers on. We'll have fans on. We'll have this on. We'll have that on. But we're going to cover it all. We really will.
We sure are, Jack. In fact, let's do this right, my friend. Let's start it from the beginning, and let's get this rocking, Jack. Let's see if I can do this. I always have fun trying to bring up my production, which is always a chore for me. I don't know why, Jack, but let's do it.
Mac, these last couple of days have been brutal here. I mean, with the production thing, we got to get our production crew on it these last couple of days. I don't know. We're hitting a slump these last couple of days, Mac.
So it's Boxing Thursday on the Mac and Jack Sports Show. That's right, folks. Boxing Thursdays.
Matt, so Jack, we can talk a little about other sports too on Boxing Thursday.
We definitely will.
We definitely will about it.
I'll give that one update that we should give, and of course, that's last night's game between the Bucks and the Suns. Of course, it's a championship. Middleton scores 40 points. Giannis 26-14, and his best stat is 8 assists. Jack, we talked about this before, during the series and the season. You said other players needed to get involved, and I said the biggest stat that Giannis has to work on is assists. So both of those things happened yesterday. Booker had 42 points. Chris Paul had a terrible game, turning the ball over. So it's tied up 2-2 going back to Phoenix, Jack.
Chris Paul had a great opening game to this series, and people were saying, well, this is Chris Paul's year. They were anointing him the MVP award after one game. What's happened to him since then? He's declined badly. He looked awful last night. He's 36 years old. He looked like a tired 36 years old. And 3 games to go. I anticipate Chris Paul is going to regroup and play well these last 3 games, at least 2 of them. He's like a fighter who's dead tired entering the last round or 2. You just push it out and you give it all you have, and you're exhausted when the final bell rings. but teams are going to have to think after this series that they want to sign Chris Paul to a 4-year max deal, because Chris Paul certainly doesn't look like an elite superstar who could keep it going game after game the way Giannis could do. And how do you like Middleton with Milwaukee last night? You talk about a guy who's really stepping up at crunch time. I mean, Giannis has the perfect partner right now. Chris Middleton has always shown inconsistencies. They can't have him afford to do it the rest of the city, because Drew Holiday, even though he's doing some good things on defense, continues to struggle offensively. He was only 4 for 20. What interests me about both teams, Mac, both coaches only played 8 players. And this seems to be a pattern that for a number of coaches throughout the playoffs that we've seen. And you have all these guys on the bench. We talk about having depth on the bench. There's a reason you have extra players on the roster. You want to get them in for a minute or two. Get your starters a little more rest. And we see the coaches just pushing it out. I mean, there's a lack of trust on the benches, on both sides.
Yeah, it sure looks that way, Jack, the way it's going. So that's the main thing. We'll get to other sports news after the majority of our program. But of course, today is Boxing Thursday, Jack, and I want to talk a little bit. We got Iceman John Scully coming in, boxing icon. We got Sarah Thomas making her debut, a female boxer, September 4th from Star Boxing Promotions coming on in 9 o'clock hour. That's who we have scheduled. But I want to talk a little bit with you about the history of boxing, why it's so intriguing to me, the grassroots, if you will. Like every sport, it started off like almost a youth sport thing, right? Football had, sponsors on their jerseys like they do in youth sports. Baseball kind of, represented a certain group of people. And boxing was a little different, Jack. In the big cities, you had gyms all over the place. And you had the guy who won the neighborhood, right? He was a neighborhood champ. And he went on to fight the next neighborhood champion. And that's how they rose through the rankings. You're fighting the boroughs against each other, say in New York or the neighborhoods in Philly or in Boston. And they rose through the rankings that way until they started fighting, the champ of that state versus this state. And that's how boxing went way back when. So that it was very, very grassroots. You had to win your block. You had to win your borough, your neighborhood. Then you had to win the state. And then you went into fighting the nationals. And that's when boxing was at its purest. So it's not what people see today. It's not, a guy's 21-0 or hasn't fought anybody and he's getting a shot at a title. It was very meticulous, if you want to say that word. You had to win to keep going, and you had to be the best to keep going. So today, Jack, is nothing like that.
No, well, society has changed. Neighborhood rivalries used to be the thing in boxing because the neighborhoods were more closely knit back in the day than they are today. So one kid from the neighborhood, if he was a boxer and he had any notoriety and he was moving up the ranks, he would be a hero within his neighborhood. If he won the Golden Gloves, he'd be a hero in his neighborhood. He turned professional. The whole neighborhood would support him. They would turn out for him. The amateurs would have these things called smoker shows. I mean, churches would hold them. Youth centers would hold them. And they would pack in a couple of thousand people at these smoker shows. In this day and age, they don't have it. The insurance regulations, other things. So we don't have it the same way. But it used to be a big, big thing, these neighborhood rivalries. Listen, I'm a member of Ring 8, and a couple of our board members, Bobby Bartels and Lenny Mangiapane, they fought in 1964 and 2 different neighborhoods. But the fans turned out at Madison Square Garden. They fought. They had a big riot that night because it was so intense with what went on. And the 2 of them are good friends today, all these years later, and we're good friends over the years. But the neighborhoods would get behind the particular fighters, and it happened all the time. But you don't have the same neighborhood support now quite as you did then. But that did play a big part in boxing. And the different ethnic groups, took over. In the 1920s, it would be like a Jewish sport in the neighborhood to a degree, then Irish right after, then Italian, and then African American, and it would mix, all the ethnic groups together. And you have so many small clubs, Mac, running shows. There'd be so much activity. Because keep in mind, this was before the age of television. And then even when television first started, people would go out to get their entertainment a lot of the time. And it wasn't uncommon for there to be, 3 shows a week, 3-4 boxing shows a week you could go to. Ridgewood Grove, Eastern Parkway Arena, Sunnyside Gardens, and on and on. And in addition to, of course, Madison Square Garden, which ran shows on a regular basis in the New York area.
Yes, and good morning to David. Glad you could join us on our new formatted Thursday show, Boxing Thursday. So Jack, I mean, they tried to capture that, I think, a little bit in the first Rocky movie. If you looked at the first Rocky movie, he called himself a ham and egger, right? So he's fighting people from the neighborhoods. His trainer called them bums and whatnot. But they tried to put that in that Rocky movie. If you really watched it, to watch not just him talking and the actual fight against Apollo Creed there, they actually tried to bring his neighborhood into it, the father and him fighting, locally and stuff like that. So even Sylvester Stallone kind of paid a little homage to the way it was back then. You know what I mean? So that was pretty cool.
Well, even the gyms. The gyms were a big thing back then. I mean, we have a lot of good gyms today. Don't misunderstand me. A lot of good gyms, young amateurs could go to learn the trade, young professionals. But especially Philadelphia. Wow, Philadelphia was known for their gym wars. You're supposed to spar, get ready for a fight. But it was famous for the fighters going at it in the gym. And if you could survive in Philadelphia, those gym wars, I mean, that was like a badge of honor. You basically graduated in the gym, unlike, a fight, if you could survive that. It would be the same way even under the great Emanuel Stewart in Detroit with the Kronk gym. They turned the heat on where it would be so hot. It would feel like 100 degrees in there and the fighters would go at it. But listen, boxing hasn't been away. It's never been away. People might say it's coming back. It's different. Now It's basically ruled by networks, okay? Right. And you have a lot of different promotional groups. Back in the day, the biggest fights would take place in New York at Madison Square Garden for the most part, and they would be held during a weeknight. Weeknight. Imagine that today. Imagine Ali Frazier, the greatest sporting event of all time, clearly, was held on a Monday night. Now, if we had the biggest possible sporting event today, would we ever hold it on a Monday night? Let's take a major event like the Super Bowl. Can you imagine the Super Bowl starting at an 8 o'clock on a Monday night, a 7 o'clock, a 9 o'clock on a Monday night? Come on. I mean, no way. Because society has changed, and also the newspapers ruled back in the day. You didn't have the internet. You would go out the next morning after a big fight at the Garden, and there's a good chance the fight would be on the front page, certainly on the back page of the newspaper. Listen, even 1983, Roberto Duran beats Davey Moore to win the junior middleweight title. The Daily News, front page, Duran is champ again. Can you imagine the news of a boxing match? So-and-so is champ again, no matter how much the fighter is, like page 1. I mean, and people would get it, and it would be all over the place. They'd be reading it on the subways, here, there, and it gave boxing this big degree of popularity. But the problem, partly for boxing, Mac, is the other sports started becoming more well-known. Even though they were around, the NBA took off. The NFL continued its popularity. Baseball, held firm. And then we had some other sports and other personalities that came in. Even though we had a major personality like Arnold Palmer in golf and Jack Nicklaus, Tiger Woods came in. But unlike the other great athletes of the past, guys transcend into social issues, into social gossip. So people want to know about them more than just what they do for the game. But you listen, if a guy stops off for ice cream at Baskin and Robbins, it could make page 6 of the New York Post now.
That's true. That's the truth. So, Jack, let's go over a couple, some of the fight results and maybe a schedule here. A 6'9" heavyweight called Ivan Dinchenko with a 60-second knockout over Denis Bakarov. 30 years old. He's 10-0. He had a tremendous amateur record at 181-18. It's his first fight in almost 2 years. Can he make a move? I mean, he was a very good amateur. He knocked out this guy in the first round. Maybe he was good, maybe he wasn't. I don't know. But that big of a man, would he be able to make a move at this age against some of the premier heavyweights? Because he's not got a lot of time.
Mac, there's certain things called in sports where we have to wait and see that I want to don't comment on. It's called their projects. Okay. The Knicks years ago didn't draft Ron Artest. They drafted a guy, Francis Wheeler, whatever his name was, a Frenchman. No one had an idea. He was a project. It didn't work out. Just couldn't say. When you've lost 18 times as an amateur, it doesn't mean you can't be a great fighter. Okay?
Especially when you're 181.
Right. But some of these records, they're not completely verified. Some of the fights are verified, some aren't. So I'm always kind of a little skeptical of, unless I've seen the guy, heard more about him, in international competition. And I really haven't heard that in this case. So I'm going to reserve judgment and not comment.
Okay. You have Zurdo Ramirez stops Barrera, 42-0, Jack, 28 knockouts. Drops him 3 times in the 4th round. Is this another light heavyweight in the fold? I mean,
yes, he's a threat. He's a serious threat. The type of fighter that none of the other top light heavyweights like Artur Beterbiev, Dimitri Bivol, or Joe Smith are going to be anxious to fight because he's high risk, but he's not high reward right now. He has a name out there. And he could figure in a big fight, but he's a serious threat. He'd had promotional difficulties before with Top Rank. He overthought his value at the time, and it kind of backfired on him, so he was out of the ring a little while. But against Ramirez, I mean, he looked good, but listen, Barrera folded with, he got hit to the body a couple of times and kind of folded pretty easily. Was he hurt with the body shots? Yeah, I assume he was. He went down a couple of times. But sometimes you kind of sense a fighter's resolve. His will to win isn't as strong as it could be. And you could kind of sense that a little in Barrera. As the fight went along, he figured, this is a tough night. I don't really think I could win the match. And then he gets hurt. And, and then his resolve, isn't quite as strong. But it was an impressive win by Ramirez. But Barrera's close to 40 years old.
True.
So sometimes, a fighter's thinking retirement before the fight. I don't know whether Barrera's thinking that. But if he is, then he's halfway beaten.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, 42-0. I've watched a couple of Ramirez fights, and he is a dangerous man, Jack. Hojo or Jojo Diaz, 32-1-1, captures the interim lightweight title, defeating Javier Fortuna, who was 36-1 on a unanimous decision, Jack.
Good tough fight. The scoring was maybe a little wider for Diaz than it should have been, but a good fight.
Yes. So we also have in one day, Jermell, not Jermall, Jermell Charlo versus Castaño, 17 July on Showtime at 9 p.m. for the super welterweight championship.
Mac, could you imagine one of boxing's big scandals? If one of the Charlo brothers is supposed to fight, hypothetically, and he's sick, let's say, can't fight, the other Charlo twin sneaks in because their weights are so close and he takes his place and wins the fight, whatever, and it's found out. I mean, I heard a case of a high school basketball coach. There were twins. One of them had too many fouls. He was out of the game, but he snuck the other one in there. So,
well, anyway, that's Jermell and Jamal both raising Cain in boxing, Jack.
Well, I mean, listen, Jamal Charlo, the heavier one, the middleweight's unbeaten. Jermell Charlo, the junior middleweight, has lost one fight, which he later avenged.
Right.
And he's the class of the junior middleweight division. And if he beats Castano, which is expected, and he hangs around the junior middleweight, the talk is him having a rematch with Erickson Lubin. Very good young talent. Lubin fought him 3 years ago, and Charlo knocked him out in a round. And a lot of people feel Lubin was beaten so decisively and quick because he was green. So they tend to forgive that like 3 years later. But the problem with Jermell, with an E at the end, M-E, moving up to middleweight, is that his twin brother Jamal is one of the middleweight belt holders. But listen, if he moves up to middleweight, he doesn't have to fight his brother. He has Demetrius Andrade there, who is the WBO belt holder, who'll take on anyone. Andrade has a hard time getting a fight. So I anticipate, unless Jermell Charlo has a lot of problems making weight, he's going to stick, in the junior middleweight division.
Well, Jamal could. I mean, he's considered super middleweight. He could move up to a light heavyweight division if he chose to. In fact, Castano may try to lose weight to go down and fight Jamal at the super middleweight weight. So even if Jermell did move up, Jamal could also move up, Jack. So Castano's talking about losing weight.
Yeah, but it's business, Mac. It's about business also, who could make you the most money. And Jamal, as one of the middleweight belt holders, he has 2 fights that are very lucrative if he can get them. Canelo Alvarez. No one wants to fight Canelo Alvarez because they think he's so beatable. But because even if you lose, you kind of win because you get a massive payday, a life-altering payday to fight Canelo. Even if you get the short end of the money, it's massive to fight Canelo, a lot more than you could probably get fighting anyone else. And also there's Gennady Golovkin, who's 39 years old. He's at middleweight. Golovkin in his prime, no one wanted to touch him. No one wanted to fight him. Take my word. Jamal Charlo wouldn't be boldly calling out Gennady Golovkin if he was in his prime, because Golovkin would have been too much for him. But Gennady Golovkin, age 39 today, is beatable. I think Jamal Charlo would have an excellent chance of beating him. So Jamal Charlo wants that fight for two great reasons. One, he really thinks he could win. 2, it's great money. So, listen, there's some guys everyone wants to fight, like a Manny Pacquiao. Everyone wanted to fight Manny Pacquiao before I fought Errol Spence because the money is so great. Even if you lose to a watered-down version of Manny Pacquiao, you win financially, and who wouldn't want that?
Definitely. We talked a little bit about the show, and you mentioned it. I took notes a little bit on this about the Triller Fight Club having Triller Verse launching in August 3rd, where they're supposed to have some really good matches. They're mixing up music and boxing and all that good stuff. I think the first fight is a real good one, August 3rd, Jack. I'm trying to see. That's Charlo's fight, in fact. No.
It's not. Yeah. No. It's separate fights.
Right.
Charlo's not on that show. Mike the Bounty Hunter,
yep.
The lower level rated world heavyweight contender.
Right.
Barely inside the top 10. He's on the show. And former belt holder Chris Algieri is on the show in separate fights. I mean, listen, the whole story of the Triller has a monthly deal now with Madison Square Garden to run monthly shows where they're going to run in the small arena, the Hulu Theater. How good the fights are going to be, it remains to be seen. this first show is so-so. Nothing, in all honesty, to get excited about, except that boxing is returning to New York for the first time since the pandemic. That's the story. People are going to just want to show up. If anyone, they'd show up if you were on that show, Mac. They just want to be there. They want to break the ice.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
And that's what it is. But it's, it might be a little complicated. They need evidence that people have been vaccinated for 14 days or something to attend. It's confusing. It's kind of like the Tokyo Olympics. There are going to be people there. I guess people are going to have to show their ID card, that they were, their vaccination card, I should say, to be allowed in. And I'm not sure how it's going to work, how exactly it's going to work.
Well, Jack, what I got is I got the Bounty Hunter is right now ranked number 7 is what by Ring Magazine.
Like the Bounty Hunter, right.
So he's going to be fighting the White Delight is what he calls himself, Michael Wilson. But also they said featured is former champ Chris Algieri versus from Long Island versus crosstown rival
Michael Lespierre. Lespierre has been around. He doesn't have much power. Not that Algieri's a big punch himself, because he's not. But Algieri's just more talented. So Algieri, I would think, would win that fight on points. And Mike Hunter. Listen, Mike Hunter is going to be in position as a voluntary defense for one, whoever's a belt holder.
Sure.
I mean, so if Mike Hunter just has to win, keep it going. Mike Hunter's, as far as him being an elite fighter, he's never going to get there as an elite fighter. But look, you hang around, you wait for an opportunity. Maybe you catch the champion off form and you're able to cash in, at some point. So,
sure,
we'll see. Yeah.
So if you guys want tickets, if you're out in New York, they go on sale today at 12 p.m. As Jack said, there's a lot of rules that go along with it, but you can purchase them at mgm.com. So the tickets go on sale at 12 today. Benavidez says he's willing to come down. This is what I was talking about, Jack, to 160 to fight Jermall Charlo. Right now, he's fighting at 168 and having problems making that weight. So Charlo says, if you want to fight me, you got to lose some weight. He's not going.
Well, Benavidez, one of his fights was canceled, I think, because he didn't make 168.
Yeah.
I think it was 168 pounds. I might be wrong. I don't think it was 160, 168. And he wants to go down to 160. I mean, listen, there should be a rule. If one of your fights gets canceled because you can't make a weight, you shouldn't be allowed to go down, weight like that. It's dangerous sometimes to go down in weight. One of our guests later, one of the fighters we're going to have on, who you're going to introduce, Sarah Thomas, she wrote a paper. I was reading up on this for her college course or something. We should talk about the dangers of cutting weight.
Right.
But part of Benavidez's problem, he's basically been a lazy fighter at times, hasn't trained as hard as he could. So maybe if he did, he could get down in weight. But I just don't see it. Maybe if they talked about a catch weight, no title on the line, Charlo could weigh about 164, 165, and Benavidez makes that weight. Maybe you're talking, but Benavidez is 160 pounds. I just don't like it. Even if he makes the weight, he could be weakened. And he has a remade excuse if he loses. Oh, I never should have tried it. I learned in the ring you just can't lose all those pounds. I don't like fighters to have a ready-made excuse for losing. I never like that.
Beautiful. Well, Jack, I agree with that. I think I almost think it should be against the rules to lose weight to come down. I really do, because I mean, you talk about the dangers in boxing. I think that's one of them. Never mind late rounds. If you're not at complete strength, a lot easier to go up than go down, man. And I think fighters make a huge mistake losing weight to go down right now. I really do. I know the money might be better, but
I can never understand it, Mac. The goal of boxers, it seems everyone who's not a heavyweight, is to get down as low as you can reasonably get in weight, okay, and make that weight, but you weaken yourself. I could never understand that. You know, if a guy is struggling, let's say, to make 147 pounds, the welterweight division, they still struggle and they fight in that division. And just think of how much stronger the guy would be if he fought at 154, 160. You could eat more. You could be stronger all the time. So these guys, they dehydrate themselves to make weight. Then they try to replenish it. That's why, you know, when we see serious injuries in boxing, the vast majority of the time, rarely is it a heavyweight that gets badly hurt. Rarely. Because heavyweights don't have to make weight. They could weigh whatever the heck they want. Right, okay, right. They could lose weight naturally, not forcing it. But the other weight divisions, guys force it. They get down tooth and nail to make a certain weight. They starve themselves, and they put themselves at additional risk the night of the fight because of that.
Well, folks, backstage right now, speaking of I know a guy that had to do that a couple times to try to make a boxing weight and that. One of the premier boxing experts around, Iceman John Scully's coming on right now on our boxing show. How we doing, Iceman?
Man, I was listening to Jack talking, and man, making weight is the worst aspect of, other than sanctioning bodies. For me personally, making weight was horrible. And that's one reason why I was only like 33 when I had my last fight, and I won, and I was going to keep going and everything. But making the weight, the thought of it just was so horrific and so many bad memories. It's the one thing I do not miss about boxing at all. It was horrible.
I can imagine, John, because you know you're going to be weaker. There's no question about it. I mean, you're training so much, you're trying to hydrate again, which your body really can't do that in time to get back up to your normal weight and normal strength. And I mean, you're just at a huge disadvantage of the guy that boxes at that weight. He's naturally strong at that weight. It's really tough, and I don't like it at all. I really don't.
Hey, I'll tell you a funny story, right? Jack, you remember Tony Thornton, the punching postman? Now, I fought Tony Thornton at the Blue Horizon. Now, the Blue Horizon is a 16-foot ring. It's super soft flooring, you know. And Tony was the number 1 or number 2 contender when we fought. What I had to do to make weight, I remember I wrote everything down. I sat in the steam room every day for 14 days, including right before the weigh-in. Like, I was in the steam room at the Wyndham Franklin Plaza in Philadelphia. I got out of the steam room and I went to the weigh-in. Like, it was like 50 yards away. So I had to make 168. So we get there, and Tony Thornton is trying to give me the mean evil eye, right? He's staring me down. And I remember saying, I said, you don't have to do that, man. Like, I'm done. Like, you know, I just got out of the steam room. Like, literally, like, I just walked over here from the steam room. You're wasting your time. You know, that's just how I went into the fight. Like, it was so horrible. It's such a crazy thing, man. Like, fighters, you'd be amazed at what we've done to make weight. Just but totally John, the reason insane. What's that?
John, the reason for it, this is what I don't understand, why virtually every non-heavyweight wants to go down as low as he can go to make a weight, because maybe their distorted thinking is, well, the lighter I am, the less power my opponents are going to have, the better chance I have of winning. Why not let a guy just fight at his natural weight, what his body is accustomed to? I can understand a slight adjustment. You tweak a couple of pounds here and there. That, you know, that's not a big deal. But some of these guys have absolutely no business fighting in as lower weight classes they do. It's so unnatural for their body, and they're so dehydrated. Let me ask you this, John. The best time to weigh in for a fight has been a big controversy. I'm not sure what the answer is. Is it the day before or on the day of the fight? If you ask me and I had to pick one of the two, I'd say the day before, but I'm not saying that with any real confidence. When do you think the best time is to weigh in when a guy could be at less risk?
Well, when I fought Tony Thornton, we weighed in the morning of. And so I know psychologically and physically, I'm not going to have time to prepare. You know, I'm going to make the weight by 8:30 in the morning. By the time I eat, it's going to be after 9. So I'm fighting him 12 hours later. Emotionally, mentally, psychologically, the night before gives you a cushion. It gives you an idea that you can replenish. Now, knowing what I know now, realistically, it doesn't matter. Like, we're only talking psychologically, because physically, if you're making weight under extreme circumstances, 24 hours isn't going to help you. Like I said, you're done. And like I say, I've done it at least, I mean, man, probably 15, 20 times, but I've done it at least 4 times under extremely unnatural circumstances. And I did it one time, the only time I got stopped in my pro career. I got stopped just because I wasn't throwing punches. I fought Drake Dadsey for the IBO title. I was so dehydrated. It's I can laugh at it now. We went after the weigh-in. So I'm trying, you know, a fighter is an actor. A fighter is always going to try and hide everything. So I looked horrible. My friend told me after, he said, you know, you were green. Your skin was green when you got ready to fight Drake Dadsey. So we go to the weigh-in. Now, when a fighter makes weight, no matter, I don't care if he just surgically removed his leg 10 minutes earlier. If he makes weight, he feels good. No matter what he looks like, he feels good psychologically. So I made the weight. We're walking back to the hotel, and one of the fighters had his father-in-law, who is an idiot. He doesn't know anything about boxing, but he's one of these guys. He wants to be involved. And so the fighter said to me, "How you feeling?" I said what every fighter on the planet Earth says, "Feel good." And the guy said, he didn't know better. He goes, "You feel good? You look like death warmed over." And when he said that, I couldn't even be mad, because I realized if this moron recognizes that, then everybody does. They're just not saying it. He was the only one dumb enough to say it out loud because he didn't know better. He didn't know that he was supposed to just pacify me and tell me I look good. And so
John,
everybody's like, so I just couldn't even be mad. So I knew, if he realized it, then of course Drake Dadsey realized it. Goody Petronelli certainly realized it. Everybody knew it, you know.
But John, sometimes fighters, they manipulate making weight to their advantage. They have a contract that they have to make a certain poundage, and they're going to be fined X amount if they don't. But they might think, look, I'm making enough money. I don't mind. I'll lose 10% of my purse, because if I'm strong and I don't have to make the weight, my chances of winning are much better. And if I win, I'm going to get much more back than the fine I'm paying, you know, future purses, marketability. So they, once in a while, they deliberately don't make the weight. I'm not sure in the case when Danny Jacobs fought Canelo Alvarez, whether he deliberately didn't go all out to try to make the weight. But sometimes you could tell if a guy barely misses making the weight, he misses by a pound or so, you figure he did everything he could to make the weight. But if a guy is 7 pounds over the weight limit, you know he didn't make any serious effort to make the weight, figuring I'll take the fine and I'm going to be much stronger. You know, that does go on occasion. And it's kind of a smart move, to be honest.
Listen, that brings me to the funniest thing. It's funny you say that. When I fought Ernest Martin in the rematch, I wanted to fight Ernest more than I wanted to fight anyone on earth, right? I wanted that fight really badly. The fight was 185 for the fight. It was like a small cruiserweight, big light heavy. I came in at 177. I was in superb shape. And I remember thinking, he's going to be 185. I'll be 177, but I'm going to be strong. So the weight's not going to matter. I'm going to be strong. This guy comes in at 198 pounds. He didn't, and he was built. If you remember Mateen, he was built like Holyfield. He didn't even try to make the weight, and he knew how bad I wanted the fight. He knew I was going to fight anyway. I was 21 pounds outweighed, and I begged the commissioner, please, 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 I'll do anything, please. And he let it go amazingly. And I lost the decision. I just, he was too big. But my point is, Mateen didn't even try to make weight. He didn't even make an effort to do anything. And he knew I wanted the fight, so he tricked me. He got over on me.
So Iceman, you've been around a lot lately this last month. I mean, you've been traveling all over the place. You've been to the Red Sox game in some nice seats, and you did something really interesting that I want you to talk about a little bit. Well, two things. You went to Friends of the Champ brunch in New York. I don't know, was it champions from each division? I mean, Tyson, Spinks, and what was this brunch about, Iceman?
No, what it is Iran has gotten involved with similar to what I'm doing, like trying to raise money for fighters. So he did a thing where he had a luncheon in New York City and on City Island in New York, and like he just invited friends, his friends to come and lend their support. So we had Mike Tyson. We had Junior Jones. We had Mark Breland, Aaron Davis. It was Michael Spinks was there. It was great. I mean, it was really something. And Tyson, I'll tell you a funny thing about Tyson. He's a killer. Mike Tyson is the most menacing heavyweight champ ever. There was a guy, David Garvin, who a white kid from Fall River. He was a very good amateur back in the early 80s. As a pro, he didn't do much. And he got hit by a car a few years ago, so he's in bad shape. So Tyson, before the fight, is saying, I'll come, but can you get David Garvin to come? I didn't even know he knew David Garvin. We get David Garvin to come, and Mike Tyson acted, I thought he was going to cry. Like it was as if he met his long-lost brother from 40 years. Like he was so I have a picture of him hugging David Garvin. It was literally like he was never going to let go. And David Garvin's like, hey, just like engulfed in the sky, hugging him. Tyson was really it was cool to see. And but one thing that happened, kind of funny, everybody gets up and does their speech. There's like 5 or 6 of us to get to talk. Like number 3, Michael Spinks is getting up. He's a 2-time heavyweight champion of the world. He's up there talking. I'm looking out at the crowd, and Aaron Davis, these people talking while Michael Spinks is so rude. It's ridiculous. I get up.
Training in it.
I'm gonna say something like,
Jack, are you hearing him?
Yeah, I know. I don't. We froze up. We have a problem with the sound now. I think John froze up on his end. I think
He's getting a little bit. John, you're freezing up a little bit.
Yeah, I think John, it's like he got stunned with a punch now.
See the other
Can we hear you, John?
here.
Go ahead, John.
So anyway,
Well, the picture
Yeah,
froze.
uh,
I mean, let's
listen,
hear his voice.
ashamed of yourself. You're like 60. And you're
talking. Well, the two-time heavyweight champion of the world is talking.
Well, there you go. John
Got to get John back. This is good stuff.
I know, it's great stuff. I mean, the feed for some reason left us. I wanted to talk to him a little bit about. There he comes, beautiful. All right, it looks like we got the Iceman coming back on.
He was given a standing 8 count.
Yes, he was.
John, I think, is a little upset because I think his guy ought to better be this. Doesn't have the Joe Smith fight that they wanted. I think Joe Smith has moved on. They're going to accuse Better Beef of ducking them. I know, but
I know it's the connection is tough right now with Iceman. So I'll keep it below. Well, we'll see what happens. We'll see if we can get John back up. But we'll push on.
Boxing's known for comebacks. So if we have them come back,
yes, it is. So I don't know what happened with the connection there, but Iceman was telling us a little bit about the awards banquet to help out fighters, which he does all the time, and that's really why I have so much respect for him. Not only was he a great fighter, a great trainer, but he does a lot for boxing, Jack, and he's all around boxing all the time. He's just into the sport like nobody else. I mean, he's at every event. He's everywhere. So, I mean,
there's a great brotherhood, Mac, within the fraternity, and he's a perfect example of it.
Let's bring him up. It looks like we got a good picture of him, too. Let's see if I can get him up. Come on up, John. Here we go. We got you back. It froze up a little bit on us. John, I wanted to talk to you a little bit about and why, when I promote the show, I promote you as a boxing icon, and not because of you were a great fighter, no doubt. You're a great trainer. I mean, you're training right now. You're helping train the light heavyweight champion, one of the light heavyweight champions of the world, I should say, and you've trained others. But the way you're involved in boxing, I mean, you can see how much you love the sport. I mean, you're at every function. You're calling people. You've been writing other boxers your whole life. I mean, everything you do centers around, as Jack was saying while you were out, the brotherhood of boxing, and you're so into it. And that's one of the reasons why I love having you on, because even though you get ticked off, like anyone would get ticked off at certain of the boxing things that are happening out there, which are crazy, you are so into it. I mean, I know that you keep in touch with some of the Olympic tryout fighters. You have meetings with these guys. You're talking to people that were in the Golden Gloves, amateurs. I mean, you're all into the sport, and it looks to me like it almost is. It's your whole life, and that's why I enjoy having you on, John. You can tell the best stories, and you have a lot of knowledge. And I just wanted the viewers and listeners out there to know how much you really do behind the scenes of boxing, also. And I just think there he is. Are you back, John? Go ahead, buddy. Too bad.
I think we lost him. We never talked to John about the one time he fought for a major sanctioning body belt. We've never discussed that one fight. He fought a fighter, Henry Maske, Maske. Now, Henry Maske was an Olympic gold medalist. He lost one fight in his whole career. That was to Virgil Hill, who was, I believe is in the International Boxing Hall of Fame, if I'm not mistaken. And Mickey Duff, a Hall of Fame promoter, one of the greatest promoters of all time, Mickey Duff from the UK, said about Henry Maske, he's the only fight I ever saw. I could never tell one of my fighters how to box him because I'd have absolutely no clue how to tell anyone to fight Henry Maske. For whatever reason, Mickey Duff felt he was so awkward. John, I think John fought him in Germany. He got outpointed. Clearly, I heard, like everyone else did who fought Henry Maske for the most part. Henry Maske isn't quite in the International Boxing Hall of Fame. His name is on the ballot each year. I voted for him on a couple of occasions. I know he had a great career, but because it was basically spent in Germany, people sometimes tend to hold home cooking against a foreign fighter outside of the United States if they hardly ever leave their home country. But when you think of it, Americans can fight here all the time, and it's not held against them. But if a European fighter fights exclusively in his home country, it seems they hold it against him in the voting. But Henry Musk, John, that had to be a frustrating night, you know. You won try at a major sanctioning body, Bell, because you went against a great fight. You weren't in with you weren't in with a beatable, a truly beatable champion. You win with an elite champion. Anyone could give a beat, but that was a mountain of a chore against Musk. Tell us about it.
Yeah, he was. The thing about him, he was very tall. He's like 6'4". Like he made me look, like a welterweight. But the thing about him, he was very tall. He was southpaw, and he utilized his height perfectly. He was like a European style, hands up and out in front of him. He kept me at bay. And the ultimate thing about him was, unlike an American guy, like when I fought Michael Nunn, I was able to get Michael Nunn to fight me more. Like Michael, we talk a little trash, and all of a sudden he's on the inside, and we're banging it out a little bit more. Moski he saw that as like primitive. Like he didn't fall for tricks like that. He just did what he did. He stays on the outside and he outpoints you, and he stays at a distance. He would hold my head down on the inside, which, is illegal. The ref never warned him, it was, so he never got gifts. Like he won all his fights convincingly. Like there was no robberies. But in instances like that, like on the inside, they would let him fight his fight. I couldn't get inside. They wouldn't. Every time we got in close, they'd break us, because they knew that wasn't his fight. But he was probably the only guy I fought as a pro where I said, I don't think I can beat this guy. Like at my best, I don't think I can beat him. He's just
John,
too tall.
The stories in Germany. When you were there, did they wake you up? When you were in Germany, did they wake you up in the middle of the night? Was there funny business going on? Because they're known to do that there, especially if someone would be boxing the Klitschko brothers. It was known that they would set off the fire alarm. Imagine that, Mac. You're asleep in bed, you're training, it's 2 a.m, and the fire alarm in the hotel is set off. So you have to get out of bed, wait around like close to an hour to get back in bed. So your whole training is messed up the next day with all the game playing. That's been known to go on.
Well, two things. One thing, my trainer, who was sharp in that regard, like we always heard the rumors about them tampering with your food and things like that. So we ate all our own food, bottled water. We went and shopped for our own food. So we didn't give any opportunity for them to do anything with the food. As far as staying up goes, I'll be honest, I made a big mistake when I went over there. I went, and when you go to Germany, you fly out, you get there at like 9 a.m, 8 a.m. That's what time the flight from New York ends up in New York, in Germany. So when I got there, my first thought is go to sleep, go to bed, because I'm tired. So I went to bed. So I went to bed at like 9 o'clock in the morning. I woke up at like 8 o'clock at night, not realizing that my sleep cycle for the rest of the trip is completely destroyed, and never occurred to me to, fix that. So not making excuses, just telling you, every day, every night in Germany, I didn't fall asleep till 6 or 7 in the morning, including the day of the fight. So the night before the fight, I'm just up all night. I'm literally pacing around my hotel room, just like begging the powers that be, please let me fall asleep. And I didn't fall asleep till about 7:30, 8 o'clock the morning of the fight.
You'd be like Mac. Mac never sleeps. So that Mac would have had that solved easily. It wouldn't have been solved for him.
Yeah, but I'm not boxing the next day either, Jack. Hey, John, I don't know if you heard what I said.
Yeah, so I did it to myself without realizing.
I don't know if you heard what I said when you froze up about being a boxing icon and why we love having you on, all the work you do with boxing, Hall of Fame trips, luncheons. You're doing raising funds. You're in touch with former fighters, Olympic teams, Golden Glove teams. I mean, you're all about the sport. I know me and you and a lot of people that love boxing are upset the way it's going right now. But I know with you, I mean, you are a true ambassador to boxing. And I say that because I see everything you do, not because you come on the show. And I see all the work you do with the boxers in the sport itself. And that's one of the reasons I love having you on. Me and Jack loving having you on, not just your experience, your training, your fighting, but you really represent the sport, the grassroots of the sport. You're really into it. And that's why we love having you come on. I got to let you go right now. I'm sorry you froze because I got all that more in with you. But we really appreciate you coming on, Iceman. And hopefully you'll be on next Thursday. If not, we'll catch you when you can. But we really appreciate you coming in every week, John.
Thank you. No, I appreciate it very much, and I love boxing, and I'm glad you guys give me the opportunity to be on the show to talk about it. Thank you.
We love having you on, John. Have a great day, my friend.
All right, guys. Be good.
All right. So there you go, the Iceman, John Scully. So we're going to take a quick break right now, folks. We have Sarah Thomas coming on, going to debut September 4th, I think it is. I know I got the info here somewhere.
At the Paramount Theater in Huntington, New York, Huntington, Long Island.
Former UFC fighter. She'll be on, or scheduled to be on next, folks. So stay with us as we continue our Boxing Thursday. We'll be back right after these messages, folks.
If you served honorably in our nation's armed forces and you're looking for a way to continue serving your fellow veterans in your community, then join AMVETS. Each year, AMVETS members volunteer millions of hours at VA healthcare facilities from coast to coast, helping to improve the lives of their fellow veterans through the VA Voluntary Services Program. AMVETS posts and departments also participated in a wide variety of community service projects ranging from Americanism in our schools to supporting the Special Olympics and Boy Scouts of America. If you no longer wear the uniform today, you can still serve through the AMVETS by joining today at amvets.org.
Hi, Grandma. What's for dinner?
Hey, honey, I'm making stew tonight.
Ooh, can Nina come over?
I'm not sure about our new friend. I wonder if there's been any drinking going on. Alcohol at her age can lead to so many bad things. I've been meaning to ask you, what would happen if someone offered you a drink?
Grandma?
This is hard. She's so young, but I know I need to talk to her about it now before someone tries to give her alcohol. If anyone ever does offer you a drink, I want you to say no. I have too much respect for my family, and I don't want to get in trouble.
Okay.
Really?
I promise, Grandma.
I love you too. Okay, how about tasting this stew and telling me what you think?
Some children may try alcohol as young as 9 years old. It's not too early to talk about drinking. For tips on how to begin the conversation, visit underagedrinking.samhsa.gov. That's underagedrinking.samhsa.gov. This message brought to you by SAMHSA and this station.
When you hear the word asthma, you probably think of shortness of breath, coughing, or inhalers. Lots of things can trigger asthma, but the fact is that asthma doesn't just attack, it can kill. But with proper medical management, asthma is controllable. If you experience shortness of breath, wheezing, tightness in your chest, or persistent nighttime coughing, you may have asthma. See your doctor and get the facts. You'll breathe easier. For more information, call 211 Infoline. A message from the Connecticut Department of Public Health, keeping Connecticut healthy.
If you talk and they will hear you every single time.
Oh, we're getting killed.
Yeah. Well, Kyle's not here.
How come?
Kicked off the team. Didn't Tim tell you? Kyle and some other kids got caught drinking beer in the park a couple of nights ago.
Really?
Yeah. Zero tolerance. He's out for the season.
Come on, it's the first offense, right?
That we know of. But why should that matter? He knew not to drink. I made it clear to Matt. That's what we expect from him. What have you said to Tim?
Nothing really. You know, a lot of kids try it at this age, so.
Yeah, well, a lot of kids don't try it too. I'm not saying that Matt's going to be this perfect kid, but if I don't tell him what we expect and why he shouldn't drink, how's he going to know?
You think kids that age really listen?
They never admit it, though, but they hear more than you think.
Talk. They hear you. For more information about talking with kids about underage drinking, visit underagedrinking.samhsa.gov.
Good morning. You're listening to the Mac and Jack Sports Show on Northeast Streaming Sports.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome back to the Mac and Jack Sports Show. We're on Wednesday through Sunday, 8 to 10 a.m. live here on Facebook and YouTube and Twitch. And right now, Jack, we have a very special guest that just popped in backstage. I'm going to bring her up in a minute, Sarah Thomas. We just had the Iceman John Scullion, boxing icon. We doing boxing news, and it's only right that we interview one of the Well, it's going to start September 4th, Jack. So that's going to be pretty exciting. We're going to talk to her a little bit about.
You're right there, Mac. I want to give you credit for something, to cut in to give you credit. It was completely your idea. You want to build up to the show September 4th. Star Boxing's promoting Joe DeGuardia at the Paramount Theater in Huntington, New York. You want to start having all the fighters, as many as you can, on this show who are going to be boxing on that show. And we start off with Sarah Thomas today, but kudos to you, Mac, for the build up to that show.
Well, I mean, I can't wait to get up here and talk to her a little bit. So let's bring up Sarah, see how she's doing.
Hello.
How you doing, Sarah?
Good. How are you?
Hi, Sarah.
Not too bad. Hey, Sarah, before we get to your fight, I want to talk a little bit about you. You, of course, female boxing, I haven't really followed lately. I'm more old time, old school, Joe Frazier, Muhammad Ali kind of guy, And what got you into fighting? I mean, actually beating people up and getting hit. I mean, what turned you on? I know you fought in the UFC before this. What made you want to do that?
So I always played sports, and I'd be a little bit aggressive when I would compete, and I wanted to find something that was more of an individual sport, so I started with kickboxing, and I liked the idea that it was just me and I was accountable for everything, and then I could let out my aggression. So the second I tried it, I wanted to compete. It wasn't like I was dabbling. I immediately wanted to compete.
Right. And the UFC, I mean, what changed your mind? I mean, UFC, of course, all types of MMA, different styles, jiu-jitsu, kicking, boxing. What made you want to change from that to actually a skill where you can just use your hands?
So I trained MMA for a while, but I just really liked boxing the most out of all the disciplines. And I was told that female boxers can't make any money, so there's no point. But I realized I don't care if I make money and that I just love doing this. And now I see that there are female boxers actually making money. So
yes, they are.
It's a little different, Sarah. Boxers like Armando Serrano, Clarissa Shields, they're taking a detour out of boxing to go to other aspects of the martial arts, UFC, MMA. You're doing just the opposite. You're leaving that to go into boxing.
Yeah.
So, I mean, do you find it difficult, the transition? Because in MMA, you're used to throwing punches a certain way, a little more straight, a little more stiff-armed, you're a little less fluid in the MMA than you are in boxing. How hard is it to make that transition? How hard has it been?
I always competed in boxing fights about this, but I would say when I competed against girls who were actually really good boxers, I noticed there's definitely a difference in the boxing skill for someone who boxes and then someone who is an MMA striker. I would say the biggest thing actually was footwork. My punches weren't, I had to add power to my punches, but they weren't that bad. It was more my footwork. I was very bouncy from kickboxing, so that was probably the thing I had to change the most.
Right. So in your training for boxing now, you said footwork. I mean, I know the training is definitely different just in a lot of ways, with the holds and the kicks and stuff. You say footwork. Is it a lot more angles? Is it a lot more a strategy of whether you're going to stay back and box or come in and brawl or counter punching as opposed to taking the aggression? What kind of style or strategy have you come to get used to, or that you think you can do the best? Is it counter punching? Is it coming in strong, or is it laying back and boxing?
So I wanted to get good at all of them. Laying back in boxing was the easiest for me because I'm 5'10", but I wanted to get good on the inside just because I figured people would think I wouldn't be good on the inside, so I worked that too. But as far as footwork goes, the biggest question was balance. I felt like my balance was off a lot from my kickboxing habits because I would have to, bring my leg up there really fast, and it was more of a focus on the kicks rather than the punches. So now after I throw, I just try to always make sure I'm balanced and in position to block or counter or move and never get off balance. That's probably my biggest focus.
Yeah, as an amateur, you boxed in major venues like the Barclays Center, Madison Square Garden, small arena, the Hulu Theater. But this is your professional debut at the Paramount Theater. And I don't know, have you ever been to the Paramount Theater?
Yes.
Have you ever seen?
I have.
Have you?
Boxing there too. Yep.
Yeah, it's a very small, cozy arena where you're going to feel all the fans are right on you. It's real tight, small, but a great place, to view matches. And the boxers who fought there, you really like the venue a lot. So this is your pro debut. What do you hope to get out of your professional career?
Honestly, I'd be happy with wherever it goes as long as I'm trying my best. I know that sounds kind of corny, but I will do the best I can to take as far as I can, and that's how I feel.
But you're going to school. You're well educated. You're going to school. And we were just talking with one of our weekly guests, Iceman John Scully, former world light heavyweight contender, about weight loss. Now, you wrote a paper for school on tell us a little about weight loss. What weight do you box at?
So I would like 147. I used to, as an amateur, I competed 135 and then 141 and then 152 because cutting weight was getting me ill. So I had to come up in weight. And my paper, so I realized when I was doing research that there was a lot of research on, male wrestlers, any male athlete in a weight class sport. There's a lot of research, but there wasn't much on females. And I've always seen the females try to cut as much weight as the men. And we're supposed to have, first of all, more body fat than a man. So I was like, I wonder if this is something that's going to affect our health. And I did a study on that to see it does. And some of the weight cutting habits of these professional fighters were quite alarming.
So yeah, I mean, when we talk about Iceman, who had to do that quite often in some of his fights, and of course he's a well-known trainer too. He's training Artur Beterbiev, helping train him. He's trained some champions. He said that was probably the worst thing about boxing, next to all the different kind of belts they have today and everything. But he said that was the worst thing because it makes you weak. It makes you and mentally too. It affects you because the only thing you're really concerned about, instead of getting ready really for the next opponent in a fight, is to lose that weight. So not only does it affect you physically, but mentally you're so worried about losing the weight to make the fight, it kind of engrosses you mentally too. So I mean, it is a bad thing when people got to do that. So who are you fighting September 4th? Are you fighting an established fighter, or is it an up-and-comer like you two just starting?
So there's apparently like 8 potential opponents, and we're just waiting on an agreement. But most of them, I think almost all of them, have professional fights, but maybe 1 or 2. So nothing crazy. And I think everyone we're trying to get has at least a professional fight.
So they're not established champions. You're not going up against a champ right off the rip, then, is what you're saying.
What champ? Everyone's a champ. They have one fight and you're champ of the boulevard in your neighborhood.
Yes.
Women's boxing is 2-minute rounds. There's talk of making it 3-minute rounds to match what the men have. How do you feel about that? would you favor the change, or do you like it at 2 minutes? I would imagine any boxer would truly prefer, 2 minutes if possible. But how do you feel about women's boxing going from maybe 2-minute rounds to 3-minute rounds?
I see why women want that because equality and all of that, but I'm better at sprinting than I am at endurance, so I would like 2-minute rounds, but I understand why people would want the 3 so that it's even, but then I also see there usually are less knockouts in women's boxing, so that's why allegedly it's 2 minutes rather than 3 minutes. I'd prefer 2 minutes, but that's just selfish.
Well, at least you're honest. And listen, Sarah, you're working with Star Promotions right now, and I imagine they have some kind of plan in place for you. I'm not sure who's exactly training you right now, the trainers you're working with. But they do. In any sport, they have a plan written out what they think you're going to do as you progress. So after this fight, and when they set it up, then of course you're going to fight somebody maybe a little bit better than the last opponent you fought, and they're going to try and build you up. How long do you think it's going to take you personally to get up and be ranked up in your division? What are you expecting? Maybe a year, 2 years? Are you wanting to move up fast? What are your thoughts?
If it were up to me, I'd like it to be as quick as possible. I'm not entirely sure, but it seems with females, the opportunities to fight for belts come a lot quicker. So it could be as little as 6 fights, and then a female will fight for a belt. Especially if someone who has a belt can't find an opponent and they're desperately looking for an opponent. There's not a lot of people fight each other over and over again. So
sure,
it would take as long. There's even situations where someone who is a female who holds a belt can't get an opponent, especially during COVID, and last minute it's some girl who might even have less experience than me sometimes.
You feel a little different. You're a little more excited than you normally would be because you're making your pro debut. You fought amateur contests, but is there a little buzz in the air, kind of like a ball player getting ready for opening day? They have that special feeling for the first game. It's kind of like a new start, a new chapter in your life, having this first professional fight. Do you sense that, or is it just another fight, just a continuation on your journey?
I think I feel more excited. I like pro style than amateur style. Amateur style is a lot of points. I like that in pro you use power. I'm definitely more excited for this. I don't feel nervous yet, which I'm sure eventually I'll feel nervous, but I'm definitely excited.
Well, nerves, there's nothing wrong with nerves as long as you can bottle them up. Good morning, Keith. How you doing? Some of the listeners chiming in a little bit. So, Sarah, what does your family feel about it? If my daughter was boxing, I'd be like scared to death every time she got in the ring. My son, I wouldn't care. Go ahead, go get your butt beat or beat somebody's butt. But my daughter would be like, "Are you kidding me? Why are you doing this?" That would be me as a father. So, how does your family react to you doing this?
It's so funny because my mom is comfortable and my dad is uncomfortable.
I can imagine.
So my mom, what she did was she started watching a lot of female fighting, and now she's a fan of certain female fighters, and she'll know, oh, this person's fighting when I don't even realize it. I'm like, wow, Mom. But my dad, it gives him anxiety.
I can imagine. Every time you
they're going to be at your fight?
Yeah, I'm sure.
Holy cow! I would. Jack, you have a daughter. Come on, would you want her in there throwing a leather with another fighter? Wouldn't you wince every time she got hit? I would. I'd be like, oh man, stop. I would want to get in the ring.
I wince when I do this show with you, Max. That's not a bad question.
Well, that's all right, Jack. I'm glad you wince. At least I get some kind of reaction from it. So, Sarah, so we're really not sure who the opponent's going to be, but we know for sure you're going to be fighting September 4th. Folks, it's going to be at the Paramount. Do you know by chance if it's going to be televised on a certain network yet? Maybe I should talk to Joe about that. But do you have any information about that, whether it's going to be on a network or how it's going to be publicized?
I'm not sure yet, but it seems they generally have a stream for it, so I'm sure a stream people can purchase.
Well, because I got to watch now, Sarah. I mean, you've been on the show. And I'm going to wince every time you get hit, too. I mean,
I'm probably going to be a ringside, but a lot of these shows you can find on Facebook. Take place at the Paramount Theater.
And just for you to know, Jack's been a writer for like 40 years. I think he was around when Jack Dempsey fought back in the 1800s. But
no, not before then. I took the little time off during that. Yeah.
Yes, you did. Yes, you did. Yes, you did. That's right. I forgot about the vacations you like to take. So, Sarah, it was great having you on. I mean, we'll be paying attention after the fight. We'd love to have you back on again to see how you do, win or lose. I mean, it's exciting. I mean, I've seen maybe 3 female boxing matches in my life. I've seen Frazier's daughter versus Ali's daughter. I couldn't miss that one, But even when they got hit, I winced. It's like, oh man, don't do that. I'm just.
Mac hasn't been watching women's boxing as much as he should. I've seen plenty of matches, and to me, it's the same as men. I'm not distinguishing much at this point. I mean, come on, Mac.
You have no heart at all, Jack. You really don't. Yeah,
Mac, women are athletes, same way. I agree. And have to stop distinguishing, Mac.
I know, Jack. I try, but it's just something about that when they get hit, when they hit somebody else.
Mac still holds doors open for women. I just walk in the door and I continue on.
What's going on with
that? We have just joking here.
Yes, we are. We're just fooling around, Sarah.
Girls now.
We're just fooling around. We'll definitely be following you. We're glad you came on. We definitely could tell Joe thank you, and we'll be having some more from his stable over here. So, folks, Sarah Thomas debuting 4th September, her first fight. Where it's on, we'll find out. We'll get the word out, and please watch her as she rises to become the champion of her class. In boxing, yes, she will.
Well, if anyone wants to attend, I don't know how many tickets might be left with from Star. They should contact Star Boxing because the Paramount is a great venue, but it's not gigantic. Okay, it's a great place to watch a match. Great evening to go there. So if anyone plans to attend, don't wait too long. Google Star Boxing.
There we go.
And find out how you can get tickets to that show.
Yes. So, Sarah, again, thank you for coming on. We appreciate it, and good luck to you for September. We'll be watching.
Thank you.
Sarah, best of luck.
Thanks for having me.
No problem. So there you go, folks. Sarah is going to go out there, and she's going to raise a little bit of heck in the boxing world. I can't wait.
Listen, I don't want to meet her opponent, to see her opponent, because how could you not root for Sarah after that interview? She comes across so nice. We have to be impartial, but you want to see her do well. You
have to be impartial. You're a writer. I'm not, Jack. I don't have to be impartial at all. Sarah's going to win every fight she's in, period. That's the end of the story, okay? That's it. All right, folks. We're going to take our second break for today. We'll be back on the other side with more boxing and a little bit of sports news. So please stick with us. We'll be back after these messages. As without my assistant producer, I'm a little lost right now, but I am trying my best, folks, to make sure we do this timely. We'll be back after these messages.
When you hear the word asthma, you probably think of shortness of breath, coughing, or inhalers. Lots of things can trigger asthma, but the fact is that asthma doesn't just attack, it can kill. But with proper medical management, asthma is controllable. If you experience shortness of breath, wheezing, tightness in your chest, or persistent nighttime coughing, you may have asthma. See your doctor and get the facts. You'll breathe easier. For more information, call 211-INFO-LINE. A message from the Connecticut Department of Public Health, keeping Connecticut healthy.
We all make choices. When it comes to alcohol, kids make choices whether to drink or not.
Bye-bye. Remember, I'm going to Alex's party tonight and sleeping over.
Hey, have a seat for a second. Remind me about that party again?
And adults make choices whether to talk about it. That's true of parents and every other trusted adult in a kid's life. Kids want to know our expectations when it comes to alcohol and other drugs. They want guidance and honest answers to their questions. And it makes a difference when the message is consistent and part of everyday conversations. So talk with your kids and help lead them on a positive path. Because when you talk, they hear you. For more information about talking with your kids about underage use of alcohol and other drugs, visit underagedrinking.samhsa.gov.
If you talk and they will hear you every single time.
Oh, we're getting killed.
Yeah, well, Kyle's not here.
How come?
Kicked off the team. Didn't Tim tell you? Kyle and some other kids got caught drinking beer in the park a couple of nights ago.
Really?
Yeah. Zero tolerance. He's out for the season.
Come on, it's a first offense, right?
That we know of. But why should that matter? He knew not to drink. I made it clear to Matt, that's what we expect from him. What have you said to Tim?
Nothing really. You know, a lot of kids try it at this age, so.
Yeah, well, a lot of kids don't try it too. I'm not saying that Matt's going to be this perfect kid, but if I don't tell him what we expect and why he shouldn't drink, how's he going to know?
You think kids that age really listen?
They never admit it, Bill, but they hear more than you think.
Talk. They hear you. For more information about talking with kids about underage drinking, visit underagedrinking.samhsa.gov.
I mean, you can see right now, without LeBron, Lakers are struggling.
Let me tell you about a team I hate, all right? I know the Dallas Cowboys fan is here, so I had to make sure he knew how much I hate this team.
I'm ready.
I've often said that the people who run baseball, they try very hard to ruin it.
I'm from Brooklyn. I don't have a problem saying it to his face. Oh, I'm from Brooklyn. Hey, get any.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome back to the Mac and Jack Sports Show. We are live 8 to 10 a.m. Wednesday through Sunday. Thursday, we just changed our format over from our hockey preview, since the season is over, to our boxing show. And, Jack, so far, I mean, with the Iceman, Sarah Thomas, I mean, and all the news that you've gone over with us, I mean, very informative, entertaining show. Love having Iceman on. I loved having Sarah on. She did a real good job.
Yeah, I mean, good stuff. You know, we're glad to promote young fighters, get the word out there about them, young athletes in general. And, you know, you can only talk so much about the biggest news in sports. After a while, you get tired of talking about the Aaron Rodgers, the Deshaun Watson. Are they going to be playing this year? The NBA Finals is, you know, as compelling as it is, you can only talk about it so much. So it's good, like, we move things around and cover as many sports as we can. We have 5 shows a week, Mac.
Yeah.
We talk boxing now on Thursdays. The hockey season just ended. Of course, when the draft comes up in the NHL, we're going to focus on that. When the NBA season's over, we're going to focus on the NBA draft. Of course, we're going to go big on the NFL season. We're doing it now, Major League Baseball. And we try to cover as much as we can. And it's great, Mac, that I have a co-host here who shares my passion for boxing. Because to me, as much as I love the other sports, as big a fan as I am of a good number of sports, boxing's number 1 with me. Number 2 with you. Baseball, I think, is number 1, then boxing number 2. Football, I'm sorry. Then boxing.
That's okay. Baseball is still a hell of a sport. So
we love baseball.
We'll continue. We'll continue right now.
We need a break from the Yankees, though, Matt.
Yes.
A little break from the Yankees.
Yes, we do. Yes, we do. Because the trials and tribulations are wearing on both of us, I think. So continuing our boxing Thursday, Jack, we're going to do a boxer spotlight every week. Last week was Al Minter, a middleweight who really was great a great middleweight.
Former world middleweight champion who beat Vito Antuofermo for the title and then defended against him.
And fought Hagler too, and gave him a run for his money.
Well, Hagler stopped him in 3 rounds. I don't know what I'd say.
Did he fight twice?
No, they fought once. He didn't give Hagler much of a run for his money. Hagler tore him apart in England.
I thought they fought twice, and it was a split decision on the other one. My bad.
No. That the second. They fought twice. The first fight against Vito was a split decision.
There you go.
One of the judges, a judge from England, was utterly ridiculous.
Right.
His scoring in that fight, utterly ridiculous. So Vito really wasn't given, as square a deal as he, maybe should have been given. I'm not going to say anything was fixed, but the scoring was ridiculous. Vito was given one of the 15 rounds, and he knocked Minter down in that round. That's the only round.
Everywhere you go, as you talked about, Jack, having real judges, a pro circuit of judges that paid to.
Good morning, Linda.
Yes, our producer, who left me high and dry to run this thing myself, Jack. She's saying good morning.
That's why we can't wait for her to come back.
I know.
Because maybe we could be with this technical difficulty that we're having.
It might change. Yes, it might change.
You told me not to worry about any of this stuff, Mac. You're not going to have any technical difficulty. You're on top of things, Mac.
Yes, I don't know either, Jack. So
I don't want to take you off, Max. I'm not talking about it anymore. I'm sticking to boxing.
Good morning to you, Linda. So, in our spot in this week's boxing spotlight is former heavyweight Mike Weaver, American professional boxer who competed from 1972 to 2000, held the WBA heavyweight championship when WBA meant something. From 1980 to 1982. And why I picked him, Jack, was another fight from my childhood when I saw him fight Big John Tate. And John Tate was on the rise. If I'm right, he was an Olympic medal winner, if I'm correct. If I remember correctly, Jack.
John Tate won a bronze medal in the 1976 Olympics when they had that famous Olympic team with Sugar Ray Leonard and the Spinks brothers. He won a bronze medal that year. It was his misfortune to have to face the great Teofimo Stevenson, the great Cuban, 3-time Olympic heavyweight gold medalist.
Yes, and he was quite a boxer back then when they used to show the boxing Olympics, which was very exciting to me at that time. But Weaver wasn't your normal heavyweight champion, Jack. He didn't come out like 35-0 or 25-1 and was rocking the world. He was kind of a workman, right? He had problems with his trainers and his staff, and he changed staffs, and then he made a run. And one of these fights was against Big John Tate, who was a upcoming star, and I don't think a lot of people gave him a chance to win this. The one knock I remember they had on Mike Weaver, and he was looked like a bodybuilder. I think they called him Atlas was his nickname.
Ken Norton gave him the nickname Hercules.
Hercules, there you go. Ken Norton was Atlas. So the biggest complaint about him was he had to get warmed up. He was a cold fighter is what I heard, that he had problems warming up. Once he warmed up, he could throw. But they said that it took him a while to get warmed up. So a lot of his fights were won in the later rounds. And this is one of them. And this is the fight, Jack. So I'm gonna bring this up and share the fight, the last round between Mike Weaver and Big John Tate. And let's see if I can do this right. And let me know if I am doing it right, Jack. Can you see it on the screen, my friend?
Yeah.
Okay, here we go, folks. This is the last round for the heavyweight championship.
I want everyone to know that John Tate is far ahead on points in this 15th final round. All John Tate has to do is finish on his feet, and the fight is his.
Right. Tate was a great boxer. And as you see, Weaver's just coming forward, throwing that left hook, right to the
Tate
body.
was unbeaten.
Yes, he was. And there it is. And it was incredible, Jack. I mean, as you said, Tate was winning that fight. There's no doubt about it. Tate was winning that fight, and all he had to do, and I remember them saying that during the fight itself, is all he had to do was stay away from him. And
Tate was far ahead on points, Mac. Far ahead. Everyone knew it. The only way Weaver could win was by knockout, but Weaver hadn't been getting to Tate. It wasn't like he was wearing him down and people were thinking, wow, Weaver's really coming on, okay? Tate was still in control in the 15th round, so the knockout came sudden. Of all the fights in which heavyweight belts have changed hands, okay, this was the latest into a fight, I believe, of any in boxing history. People recall, well, Rocky Marciano came from behind. He knocked out Jersey Joe Walcott. That was in the 13th round out of the 15th. Joe Louis behind on points against Billy Conn. That was in the 13th round. He knocked him out of the 15th. There have been other 15th round stoppages, but not when a fighter was behind, not where belts changed hands like that. And it was dramatic. I mean, the only one that finished a little later was Jake LaMotta when he defended his title against a Frenchman, Laurent Tethal. He stopped him basically with seconds to go in the fight. But of all heavyweight contests, this was about the latest that it ever took place. You know, Mike Weaver, I'll tell you, had steroids been around during his time, we would have assumed he was on steroids, assumed. Because that guy's physique, wow. I mean, and reportedly, Mike Weaver didn't lift weights. It was just natural, reportedly. And I find it hard to believe he didn't do anything for physique like that. You know, the year before Mike Weaver fought John Tate, he really burst onto the scene when he fought Larry Holmes. We knew about Mike Weaver beforehand. He gets some decent wins over so-so opponents, you know, decent opponents, but not world beaters. He would lose some fights. He had this one fight, I think it was 1977, I'm going from memory, at the Beacon Theater in New York, where he fought a fighter, I think Tom Sharkey, and they fought such an exciting fight. And when I say Tom Sharkey, I'm not talking about the old-time heavyweight that fought Jim Jeffries, but I believe the last name was Sharkey. What a fight that the two of them engaged in for 10 rounds. It's one of those fights that's forgotten in time. And then he fights Larry Holmes in the co-main event in June 1979 at Madison Square Garden. The other main event was Roberto Duran against Carlos Palomino. And Holmes is ahead on points, but Weaver's coming on, and Holmes is in serious, serious trouble. And it's looking like Weaver might spring the upset. He might get Holmes out of there. Holmes is pinned in the corner. He lashes out with an uppercut, partly out of desperation, but it knocks Weaver down. He's badly hurt. He gets up, and Weaver couldn't recover on the follow-up, and the ref stops the fight with Weaver on his feet. So now he's fighting John Tate a year later. And you got to go back to think of Tate's status. Like you mentioned, Mac, he was a bronze medal winner in the 76 Olympics, and that team was touted, all of them. Sugar Ray Leonard, Michael Spinks, Leon Spinks, gold medal winners, Howard Davis, who won the best box of the tournament thing, Leo Randolph, who would later become a world champion in the pro ranks. And he was one of the medal winners, along with Charles Mooney, who I don't think ever turned pro as a silver medalist. So John Tate was highly touted. He won the WBA heavyweight title. Now he's defending against Mike Weaver. Big name John Tate. He knocks Tate out in the 15th round. And listen, Weaver defended the title a couple of times after that against Jerry Coetzee, who he stopped, South African, who was a belt holder eventually, and James Quick Tillis, who was a spoiler handful for anyone. James Tillis would later fight Mike Tyson on national TV and lose a close decision when Tyson was on the way up. Really made Tyson look bad in that fight. But then he eventually lost the title, Mike Weaver, to Michael Dynamite Dokes He lost it very controversially. They stopped it in the first round. Stopped it way too early, Mac. It shouldn't have been stopped that quick. But of course, we hear people say, well, it's better to stop a fight a punch too early than a punch too late. So my answer to that, it's better not to even fight. Because this way the fight is guaranteed not to get hurt. So don't give me that punch too early than punch too late nonsense. Because it was stopped about 20 punches too early or whatever.
Right.
They have a rematch, and it's called a draw to rematch. But most people think Mike Weaver deserved the decision in the rematch. So he was never champion again. He get like a chance at the title again in 1985 against Pinklin Thomas, a friend of mine who we've had on this show, by the way. And Thomas stopped Weaver. Ironically, the last fight of his career was 21 years after getting stopped by Larry Holmes. The two of them squared off again in the seniors tour. Yeah. They had no business fighting, and Holmes won that fight in 6 rounds. But Mike Hercules Weaver, I mean, a memorable fighter, and in that fight against John Tate, wow, we still talk about it.
I mean, he felt like a tree right on his face, Jack. I knew there was no doubt he wasn't knocked out there. He was just plain knocked out cold. And all I remember is him falling flat on his face, not even supporting himself falling. So I know he caught him with one of those big left hooks.
I'll tell you, Mac, if we ever sat down and we compiled a list of the most devastating knockouts in boxing history where a guy is just put out, you can make a good argument for that one.
Yeah.
Weaver knocking Tate out, because that was a devastating knockout. You knew when Tate hit the canvas, he's not getting up. One thing I kind of regret a little bit when you showed the tape, I didn't give it any thought because I knew what had happened. I forgot whether the referee counted to 10 or didn't count to 10. That's an interesting question, because sometimes you think a guy is knocked out. He can surprise you and beat the count. Look what happened with Tyson Fury and Deontay Wilder in the first fight. The referee, Jack Reese, did a magnificent job, because when Fury was knocked on his back, people assumed it was over, that Fury was out. Had Reese waved the fight over immediately, no one would have complained. Not many people would have complained. But Reese started counting, and Fury at the last moment got up at 9. And he finished the fight, and it was a draw. And because of that, they had a rematch, and Fury beat Wilder and has the status he does today.
Well, let's talk to you a little bit about the divisions right now, Jack. I mean, you've got a couple of heavyweights that are interesting out there. We mentioned that new guy that's 10-0 with a large amateur winning thing. I guess you might be able to compare him to Lomachenko, maybe, that he fought a lot of amateur fights.
We compare him to no one, Mac.
I'm saying in the realm that Lomachenko was mainly amateur boxer. That's what he was. I mean, Lomachenko
was arguably the greatest amateur boxer in history. Arguably, Lomachenko had won a couple of gold medals. Lomachenko was such a great amateur that Lomachenko told Bob Arum, I'm going to sign with Top Rank, but I want to fight for the world title in my first fight. The problem was they couldn't get him a world title bout without having one pro fight first. Sure. He has to have. He had the one fight, and then he actually lost the second fight, Lomachenko. I thought he won the fight to Orlando Salido, and Salido was an established, really good champion. So Lomachenko would have been better off having a few fights. The only time, that one time in history where we were talking heavyweights a little while ago, where someone challenged for a world title in the first fight was Pete Rademacher. He was an Olympic gold medalist in 1956. He challenged Floyd Patterson for the heavyweight title in his first fight. And Patterson's manager, Cus D'Amato, later Mike Tyson fame, who was very overprotective of Patterson, figured Rademacher's a good choice. Now, Patterson had a weak chin. Rademacher actually knocked him down. But Patterson, of course, dominated, and he stopped Rademacher, I think, in 6 rounds. It was pretty one-sided. Later, Patterson would say he was really embarrassed to go down against the guy making his pro debut. Rademacher continued to fight on, but never became a viable heavyweight contender. So the highlight of his career was challenging Patterson for the world heavyweight title in his first fight.
You know, you brought up a subject about that boxing and the Olympics and Stevenson from Cuba. I mean, why didn't he ever turn pro, Jack? I mean, he was good enough. Was it just because he was a Cuban fighter and Cuba didn't want him doing that? I mean, I think he would have been one of the better heavyweights at that time.
You said it best, Mac. I don't think Cuba wanted him. Listen, he won the heavyweight gold medal in 1972, 1976, and 1980. And actually, he really burst onto the scene in 1972. He wasn't the favorite to actually win the gold medal. The favorite was Dwayne Bobbick, a heavyweight from the United States, from Minneapolis. Dwayne Bobbick beat Teofimo Stevenson the year before at the Pan Am Games in 1971. And when he fought him in 1972, Bobbick was favored, but Stevenson dominated the fight and stopped him in 3 rounds. And then, and then in 76, he was at his peak. He knocked out John Tate, stopped him in the Olympics, and then repeated during the boycott year 1980. There was talk of Stevenson maybe being matched against Muhammad Ali in the late 70s when Ali was at the tail end of his career. I'm glad it didn't take place because Stevenson never could have beaten a younger version of Ali. But that older version of Ali, who knows what would have happened. Look, Stevenson was a great fighter, tremendous right-hand power, very tall, straight up, could box very well from long range. And we kept thinking why it didn't happen. Listen, there was a 2-time gold medal winner at middleweight, Laszlo Papp from Hungary. He turned pro late on, never fought for a world title, and I believe was unbeaten. But somehow with Stevenson, Fidel Castro, it just didn't happen. Same way like Cuban baseball players. There was some excellent Cuban baseball players, but they never quite transitioned into the major leagues with Castro.
Very few.
It was, yeah.
Very few. So in the light heavyweight division, and this I wanted to talk to Iceman about this too before they froze. So you've got a lot of people right now that could possibly either are in the lightweight division or that could make a very easy jump into the lightweight division, right? You've got, of course, you got the 3 champs right now. You got Beterbiev, you've got Smith, and you got Bivol. Go ahead.
Mac, you mean light heavyweight? You said
light heavyweight division. Light heavyweight division. So you've got those 3 right now that are in there. But you got Ramirez coming up right now. I mean, he's dangerous. He can fight maybe anybody right now. In fact, he's looking to fight Bivol. You got Canelo sitting on the outside who could come in and fight at light heavyweight. You even got even Charlo could go up a division if he really wanted to, and that's Jamal. He's a super light middleweight. He could go up in the light heavyweight division, and even
Charlo's really a middleweight, Mac. I don't see him going up to light heavyweight.
They said he could fight super middle.
Super middleweight, but super middleweight. I don't see him jumping 2 classes to compete with the guys in the middleweight division.
I think he could do it.
He could conceivably do it, but it's not a serious thought at the moment.
But anyway, so you have Joe. No, not Joe Diaz. I'm trying to find the other guy that the one that Castaño, is that the one coming down? There's one coming down.
Well, that's a junior middleweight. We're moving around.
Right. Okay. I know there's one more that could be there, but you're talking about a light heavyweight division overall, Jack, that could be very exciting within the next couple of years. I mean, I could see Ramirez going up against Beterbiev or going up against Smith. Those would be great fights. So, I mean, there's a lot of action that's going on there in the light heavyweight division. Could possibly go on in there too. So, I mean, right now, I know you've got a great middleweight division. You got a great welterweight division. I think the light heavyweight division is coming up. So let's get to the heavyweight division. So finally, Fury comes out. He gets Boxer of the Year. I don't know why. I don't think he fought in 2020, to be honest with you. I don't know why you got Boxer SB.
Well, that was for a couple of years ago.
He didn't fight
of
last
years ago where he fought Wilder. Well, it came down between him and Teofimo Lopez. Lopez beat Lomachenko in a close decision. Fury dominated Wilder, stopping him in 7. That's from a couple of years ago.
So anyway, he comes up and he thanks, but he doesn't say anything about the supposed COVID he caught. He doesn't say anything about his health. So it makes sense to me that he just postponed it and gave this excuse because he wasn't in shape. And if you saw any film of him, you know he wasn't in shape, Jack. He looked really heavy. I mean, he looked heavier than he normally did and more out of shape. He doesn't look like he doesn't have the best boxing physique there is anyway. But he looked terribly out of shape. And because that other fight got canceled or put off, I don't know if he was in that kind of shape when he was supposed to fight Joshua, or he just said, "The heck with it." He just let himself go. But it seems to me, wouldn't that be the first thing you would talk about in your first interview in the public? Say, "Hey, listen, this is what happened." Why aren't you saying anything?
Mac, Eddie Hearn, he's an opposing promoter. So we have to look at it from that perspective. He questioned everything, how ticket sales are, that the fight's rushed. And as a promoter of a mega event, it takes a lot of time to promote the fight, get things in place. And you don't just rush things, and especially hold a fight right before the Olympics and while the NBA playoffs are going on and everything is at its height. And it didn't seem to be doing great business, okay, from what we could gather. I'm not saying Fury didn't catch COVID. I don't know. I mean, I'm not going to say that point blank. But I don't want to hear, well, he got his first vaccination, but he didn't want to get his second one because he didn't want to get ill while he was training for a fight. The after effects are 1 day at the most. You might have a bad day the next day. So I understand you don't want to get the shot, the week of the fight, the second one. Why get the first one then? Because the after effects after you get your first one. And I just don't like the whole thing. In this multi-million-dollar promotion, you mean to tell me all this wasn't planned out when guys are getting their vaccinations and this and that? Yes. It's ludicrous. It's absolutely ludicrous. I don't think Fury was in the shape. I don't think he was ready for the rematch.
Oh, no.
His attitude was, I'm better than Wilder. I'm just going to show up. I'm going to overpower him. But all of a sudden, realization may have been setting in that Fury maybe wasn't as ready as he should have been. Maybe he needed a couple of months more of time.
Of course he did.
Train and get himself ready. And this was a way to cop out and not box. No statement from him after. We don't see Fury in front of the camera. We don't see, Bob Arum for days after. Frank Warren, the co-promoters. I just don't like it. It's a mess. It's an absolute mess. And, and I'm a little suspicious.
They're lying. They're just lying. I'll call it the way it is. They're lying. He didn't have COVID. He just wanted to postpone the fight. I'm telling you, Jack, he didn't. If it was my first time, and first of all, as you said, I would give a statement right off the rip. Second thing is, the first time I go into public, say, "Hey, listen, fans, I'm sorry, I got COVID from this guy." Blah blah blah. There was nothing. He said,
"Have a press conference with the doctor. Let the promoter with the doctor who checked Tyson Fury for COVID." And it's and isn't Tyson Fury supposed to be quarantined if he has COVID? I hear. I heard, and I'm not sure if it's accurate, but I hear he's been out and about a little bit. Okay, true. What about the sparring partners? Everyone in camp? I don't get this.
No,
I just don't like it. But let me tell you something. Time will go by. They'll fight Wilder in time, and we're going to forget about this. I just don't know. And the interesting thing too. We haven't heard Wilder say anything.
Nothing
at all, which leads me to believe maybe something's going on behind the scenes.
Yes.
Maybe they've gotten together with Wilder and they're giving him an incredible amount of money to now step aside and let Fury go right in and fight Joshua directly. And
Even-
Wilder's going to get a massive amount of money and a guarantee of, maybe fighting Dylan White, amazing money after that. And as a business, I just don't know.
Or maybe he talked to Wilder and said, hey, listen, it's not going to be a good fight. I'm not ready. I don't think you're ready. Let's take a couple months. The money's not good, as Hearn said. Let's take a chance and build this up so we can make the most amount of money.
And also, on a more serious note, Fury has had mental health issues before. And if you recall, after he won the heavyweight championship by outpointing Vladimir Klitschko, they were supposed to have a rematch. They had the press conference, they met. Shortly before the rematch, Fury pulled out, admitting he had some mental health issues. And we're very sympathetic towards something like that. But the bottom line is the rematch never took place.
Right.
Is Fury having those issues again? Because Fury could be erratic at times. And if he is having those issues, we're sympathetic towards that. And we care about his well-being above any boxing match. But we just don't know. No one's really talking to us, giving us concrete answers. And, we'd like to hear what's going on.
No, I think we can surmise what's going on. Jack, we always have this discussion. You, and I was going to bring this up with Scully too. You two are huge Muhammad Ali fans. I mean, that to you two, Muhammad Ali is the greatest champion of all time. And
no, I could criticize Ali. I have criticisms as well. Yeah.
I would say I respect Muhammad Ali. I think he's a top 5 of all time. I think there's other people there you could make a legitimate argument for to be even better than Ali. But they like to compare him in his prime against Mike Tyson, right? Me personally, I think both in their prime, I think Tyson would win. I think it'd be a hell of a fight. I think Tyson would eventually get to him. But no matter what, a lot of people think Ali would just box him to death, and that's possible too. So I've heard people talk about Fury at his best against Mike Tyson at his best, when Mike Tyson was Mike Tyson. Fury a lot bigger than Tyson, has a longer reach, a little bit heavier than Mike, but I think Tyson still has the edge in power. If they were to meet, in your opinion, if they were to meet, both in their prime, both at their best, does Tyson get a shot? Does he beat Fury, or does Fury keep him at bay and beat Tyson?
You know what the problem is with boxing, Mac? It's always one and done. Right now, the Phoenix Suns are playing the Milwaukee Bucks, best 4 out of 7.
All right.
It's not just one game. If they play just one game, Phoenix wins the one game, they're NBA champions. It's all done. But Milwaukee might now actually win the series. Who knows who's going to win 2 of the next 3? Why does it always have to be one and done in boxing? If they both fought best 4 out of 7, neither guy would sweep. Okay? Right. Neither guy would sweep. Fury, size-wise, is massive. He's just too big. Tyson has a difficult time punching up with tall guys. I mean, he lost to Buster Douglas, a taller guy. Maybe wasn't in the greatest form. Razor Ruddock, a taller guy. He had difficulty hitting. George Foreman had difficulty with taller guys. Something about, certain fighters, certain styles bother them. Fury was so big, boxing from a distance. Tyson would have a hard time hitting him. But with that said, Fury's punch resistance, you can't call it great. I saw Steve Cunningham knock him down in Madison Square Garden, small arena, knock him flat on his back. Wilder got to him. Maybe Tyson does as well. Fury at his very best, top shape, top form, fighting a very conservative fight. I would think he can outbox Mike Tyson, hold on to him, because Fury's a giant of a man.
Yes.
Tyson's a short guy. I would think Fury could outpoint him, but if Fury made one mistake or something and Mike Tyson exploded with his punches, Fury's chin isn't foul-proof. So, listen, if it's best 4 out of 7, neither guy sweeps. How about that?
I agree with that. I was thinking maybe a trilogy, Jack. I was thinking maybe 2 out of 3.
2 out of 3. I think it would go 3.
Okay.
3 fights. If best 2 out of 3. Yeah.
So you're just not going to say, which I
one guy would win 2, one guy would win 1. Listen, I give Fury an edge because of his size at his very best. Fury's a master boxer. People don't realize about them.
Yes.
He at times looks like a big version of Floyd Mayweather. He really is a master boxer.
He really is. His style is very unique. He's very unorthodox.
The style is bad for Mike Tyson.
Yes.
Style isn't good for Tyson.
Tyson at his best could get to your body. He had that defense that was unbelievable.
What a big body Fury has, though.
Oh, yes. It was a lot to punch at. It would be very interesting. I would love to see something like that. I'll tell you that right now. So, to me, the more I watch video, the more I investigate, the more I look at boxers. I'll tell you, Jack, I didn't know how really good Jack Dempsey was. I really didn't know that this light heavyweight beating up guys outweighed by 50, 60 pounds and destroying them. I really didn't know how good this heavyweight was. And my dad mentioned him to me once in passing because he grew up during Rocky Marciano for the most part. And he talked about Rocky Marciano a lot. But the more film I watched of this guy, this man was unbelievable, Jack. Power, speed, crushing power. To me, if I had to say greatest boxer of all time right now, and my mind's changed a bunch, but right now, I say Jack Dempsey.
You wonder how much of the younger generation really remembers Jack Dempsey because years go by. And listen, Jack Dempsey was the perfect fighter for his time. During his era, he came up the same time as Babe Ruth came up in baseball, and he was just as big as the Babe. He made a lot more money than the Babe. Boxers used to make more money. And Jack Dempsey was the ideal fighter for the Roaring 20s, the 1920s. And when you say he knocked out a bigger man, when he won the world heavyweight title against Jess Willett, he gave up about something like 58 pounds to Jess Willett in that particular fight. And listen, there may have been greater fighters than Jack Dempsey, but I don't think you had a heavyweight that was ever in as many exciting fights as Jack Dempsey. Everything was exciting. Knocking Jess Willett down 7 times in the first round of the fight, he won the title. And Willett somehow survived. There's a funny thing behind that. Dempsey's manager, Jack Doc Kearns, who was an amazing character, he made a bet, $10,000, which was massive money at the time, at 10-1 odds, that his guy Dempsey was going to knock out Willett in the first round. Well, Dempsey knocks Willett down 7 times in the first round, but on the last knockdown, the bell rings. They don't hear the bell. They think the fight's over. Dempsey's leaving the ring, thinking he's new heavyweight champion. His manager, Jack Kearns, is frantically calling, Jack, get back in the ring. They're going to disqualify us. He gets back in the ring. Dempsey's exhausted from leaving the ring, and the fight has to continue. They lose the bet, but 2 rounds later, they stop the fight. Willett is beaten up badly, damaged real bad, broken jaw. They have that fight. He was in the first $1 Million Gate, Georges Carpentier. He's fighting in Shelby, Montana. They bankrupt the fight because they wanted a heavyweight title fight in Shelby, Montana. So the town put together $300,000, and they lost so much money on the promotion, the town went bankrupt. He fights Jack Sharkey. Sharkey complains to the referee that Dempsey's hitting him low. So as he's complaining to the referee, Dempsey hits him a left hook and knocks Sharkey out cold. And later they asked Dempsey, should you have hit him? He said, well, what was I supposed to do, write him a letter? Then the long count against Gene Tunney when he tried to regain the title. He knocks Tunney down, but doesn't go to the neutral corner. There are new rules. The referee begins his count over again. There's a controversy whether or not Tunney would have gotten up in time had Dempsey gone to the neutral corner immediately. So much excitement. He was a great people's champion. He always signed autographs for fans. Yes. He had a motto, Mac, I'm going to finish off by saying on Dempsey. He always used to say, whenever you sign an autograph, you're always making a new friend. Athletes should think about that.
Great words, great champion. Good show, Jack. Loved our guest today. A little technical difficulties with Iceman, but it was worth the wait because Iceman is one of the best. People,
and I earned my money on this show, Mac.
You really do. You really do, Jack. You really do. And why? I mean, why wouldn't I have a Boxing Day with you? So, folks, thanks for coming on and enjoying the show with us and watching and listening. And we'll be back tomorrow, 8 a.m. to 10 a.m., same time. We'll have NFL former wide receiver Byron Williams on with us to do an NFL review and preview.
I love seeing Byron Williams. It's getting today. I love having him on.
And Keith Engel, TGI Sports Talk host.
Love having Keith on too, Matt.
Great guest for tomorrow, folks. Have a great Thursday. We'll see you tomorrow.